Hi everyone, this is Tom with the LEC preview of this week. This one is going to be the opening weekend of the LEC Summer Split. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of anticipation, and there's a lot of action to cover because this is a 3-match day weekend. Riot has chosen to implement 2 super weekends right at the start of the split and at the end of the split to give them a bit more flexibility in case they need to move the schedule around. So there's a lot of action to cover. So let's take a look at the schedule of the LEC opening weekend. The first day kicks off with G2 versus Mad Lions. This is obviously a very interesting match because G2 and Mad Lions went head to head a few times during the spring split. Mad Lions actually managed to defeat G2 on 2 separate occasions, once during the regular split and once during the spring split playoffs. Now, I do have to say I give the edge to G2 here because they swap back Perks and Caps, and I think in this formation they are the strongest, with Caps on the mid lane and Perks as the AD carry. Perks is a fantastic mid laner and a fantastic AD carry. I think in the spring split he was the best mid laner in the league, but I think Caps' play as an AD carry left a lot to be desired, even though he did grow towards the end. I just think in the mid lane he is almost untouchable, and that's where you want a player like him to be, where he can roam freely and especially be more comfortable, because I think when you saw him play during the spring split, sometimes he looked incredibly unhappy with his position, even if his team was performing okay. The second match is going to be Vitality versus Schalke. On paper, not as much of an interesting match as the opening match, but I do think there are 2 interesting things to follow. Vitality signed a new support player, Labrov, and Labrov is being praised by a lot of people for his skill, and he is a talent that may actually flourish in the LEC. So it will be interesting to see if he can actually show some of his new skill during this opening match and see how he performs on the big stage, even though the teams are playing online. On Schalke side, there is also a new support player. Nukes is making his debut as a starting player. He comes from Schalke Evolution, where also Lurox and Inex came from earlier during the spring split. So Schalke has actually now 3 of their Schalke Evolution teams as their starting roster. I think it's an interesting development to follow, and we'll see where they end up. Then there's Origin versus SK Gaming. I don't think this is going to be a very interesting match to watch. SK had a lot of issues during the spring split. They did make an adjustment of pushing their mid laner Genox to the top lane and hiring a new player, Zazie, who's coming in from the German Prime League, to be their new mid laner. May help them out a bit, but in the end I think Origin is still just the strongest team of the 2. Then there's Rogue versus Excel. Those are 2 teams who ended up around the middle tier in the LEC during the spring split. Rogue obviously finishing 6th, but then knocking out Misfits to claim a 5th position overall during the playoffs, and Excel barely missing out on the playoffs with a 7th place position. I think that overall Rogue will have the edge here, but maybe Excel's new top laner, Kreis, who's coming in from Unicorns of Love, can do something special against Finn in the top lane. Finn had some rough matches during the spring split, and if that's the case again, maybe Excel find a way to capitalize on that. The final match of the day is going to be Misfits versus Fnatic. Again, a pretty interesting match because Kobe is returning as an AD carry to Europe after a brief stint in North America. This means that Kobe will face off against Reckless in the bot lane, and I think that's where all the eyes are going to be on, because Reckless still counts as one of the best, if not the best, AD carry in the league. Now, I do think that in the end Fnatic will have an edge here. Misfits showed their flaws towards the end of the season, but Misfits has upset potential. They have a very strong mid lane and jungle combination in Resorg and Febiven, and with the addition of Kobe, as well as the promotion of DOS, a new player who's going to be a support player for Misfits. Not sure what the dynamic is going to be between him and the other support player Misfits, Danik, but Misfits has a chance to spice up their bot lane a bit more, so maybe they will find new strategies and can edge out a win against Fnatic. Day 2 starts off with SK Gaming versus Schalke 04. Not the most interesting match when you look at the skill of both the teams, but what is interesting, much like the match between Vitality and Schalke, is that when lower tier teams play against each other, the stars or the potential new rising talent have a bit more of a chance to shine rather than against a team where they would be absolutely stomped by. So that may be something to watch there. Then there's Misfits versus Rogue. I think this is the second most interesting match of that day. Misfits and Rogue did clash a few times during the spring split. Rogue won every single one of those times. During the regular split, they went 2-0 against Misfits in the best of ones. And they went 3-1 in the best of 5 against Misfits in the lower bracket of the playoff stage. So Rogue has the upper hand when it comes to the track record. But as said earlier, Misfit has made some adjustments to the roster. With Kobe, they have a stronger bot lane now. So who knows what they can do against Rogue. Then there's Mad Lions versus XL Esports as a third match of the day. On paper, this may not look very interesting, but keep in mind that XL was the only team to defeat Mad Lions twice during the regular spring split. Mad Lions has something to prove. While they did show a lot of progress and obviously finished third, very dominant performance for a rookie team, XL also made some roster adjustments, so who knows how that match will go. Then the fourth match is between Vitality and Fnatic. Not gonna make that a long one. This is gonna be probably a very easy win for Fnatic. Individual class, teamwork, it's all on Fnatic's side. The final match of the day is G2 versus Origin. Once again, a very exciting match for very obvious reasons. G2, the strongest team in the league, and then you have Origin, who has been in this league limbo for a while now. They're not quite on the side of Fnatic in G2 where they're fully top tier contenders, but they're also quite a bit better than the middle tier teams of the LEC. So you have now Caps versus New Duck in the mid lane. You have Alfari versus Wunder, two of the best top laners in the LEC in the top lane. And in the bot lane you have Perks versus Upset. I think overall this is going to be the most interesting match of the day. Definitely looking forward to it. I think Origin will have to step up their game a lot if they want to defeat this version of G2, but who knows. Day 3 starts off with Mad Lions versus SK Gaming. I don't expect this to be a very close match because Mad Lions outclasses SK Gaming in just about every way, as teamwork as well as individual skill. Then there is Rogue versus Schalke 04 as the second match of the day. Rogue is probably the favorite in this one, given their individual level of play, but there is a way Schalke 04 could have an avenue towards victory. I think Finn in Rogue's spring splits showed a few matches that were pretty rough, and Odo Amne on Schalke's side has been the most consistent performer for them in the top lane. So perhaps if Rogue has a rough day again and Schalke manages to play through their top lane a bit more with Lorax assisting Odo Amne, then Schalke can cruise towards a victory. Then there's Misfits versus Origin as a third match of the day. Probably the most interesting match of the third day of the opening weekend, because Misfits has a lot to prove, and I think that against Origin they may actually get a chance to do so. Origin has a traditionally very slow playstyle, which can allow Misfits to experiment a bit more with how they want to navigate during the game. As I said earlier, they played a lot through their mid lane originally during the spring split, but with Kobe as their bot laner, they may try to experiment more with playing through their bot lane, and who knows, maybe they'll find a way towards the victory against Origin with that. Obviously on the mid lane there's still a very interesting matchup. Febiven and Noobdog are two of the best mid laners in the LEC, so this will be an exciting one to watch as well. Then the final matches of the opening weekend are going to be Vitality versus G2, which is probably going to be a stomp for G2 given the individual skill and overall team play. And then there's the final match, Fnatic versus XL. I don't think XL will put up much of a fight against Fnatic either. I think Fnatic will, based on team play and individual skill, easily defeat XL and close out the weekend. That's it for the preview of the LEC opening weekend for the Summer Split 2020. Let me know what you think of the matches and which predictions you have. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more content.